Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I'm Matt O'Connor, Dean of the School of Business here at Quinnipiac University, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you here to our kickoff event for the People's United Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship's annual speaker series. Today's event is also co-hosted by the People's United Center for Women in Business. We have Senator Richard Blumenthal here with us, and he'll be discussing entrepreneurship and innovation here in Connecticut from his unique perspective as a U.S. Senator. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Fred McKinney, our Highsmith Chair of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and also Director of the People's United Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Fred, take it away.
Well, thank you, Dean O'Connor, and appreciate you your welcoming and your opening. And I want to welcome our guest to Quinnipiac, the senior senator from Connecticut, the Honorable Senator Richard Blumenthal, to campus. This is a virtual event, but it is our campus, and I welcome him on behalf of the faculty, the staff, and the students of Quinnipiac. And we're going to jump right into it, Senator Blumenthal. I'd like for you to, I'm going to turn over the floor to you to make some comments, but we have reserved a lot of time for students and other attendees to ask questions. And there is a Q&A function on the Zoom. Please submit your questions, and we will try to get to as many questions for the senator as possible. I know in talking to Senator Blumenthal, he particularly wants to hear from students and what's going on in your lives. This is your opportunity to talk to the senator, and you never know what happens when you have these types of conversations. A suggestion that you might make today might end up in some legislation that's passed by Congress and signed by the president. So this is your opportunity to share with the senator your thoughts, your concerns, and your questions. So Senator Blumenthal, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. McKinney, better known to me as Fred, because I've known you for 2 or 3 decades and have so deeply admired your work in entrepreneurship. Particularly, I'm going to be very blunt right at the start, in helping small businesses get started, entrepreneurs take the risks and have the courage that is necessary to embark on a entrepreneurial adventure and journey, and most especially in the areas of racial justice, which have come to the fore recently, but you've really devoted your life to them. So my deepest thanks to you for having me as the kickoff speaker of the People's United Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and my thanks also to the Women in Business organization and to President Olian and Dean O'Connor, and to your entire team on this call. As many of you know, I am a huge fan of Quinnipiac. I have said publicly more times than I can count that it is one of the great American success stories in education. One of the great American success stories in achieving and providing the American dream for so many students, many the first in their family to go to college, to go to any institution of higher learning. And the diversity of education, including the business school, is absolutely inspiring. So I just want to say how proud I am to be from a state that has supported Quinnipiac, to have supported it myself, the law school, the business school, the School of Communications, the undergraduate. I have spent more time on this campus, some might say, than I did on my own campus when I was an undergraduate. Just kidding. But this topic of innovation and education is one worth spending some time to discuss. And I'll do it briefly because I really do want to take questions on anything on students' mind, literally anything that they might want to ask about. What is very important for me to emphasize is that our greatest resource in the state of Connecticut is our brain power, our innovation and ingenuity. We're 4th in the nation in terms of innovation and ingenuity. I think we're actually first in the nation, but Bloomberg said we were fourth. I'm not going to quibble. What we know for sure is that we have no oil wells. We have no gold mine. We have no Grand Canyon. What we have is really smart people. That's our greatest resource. And the reason why that's a resource is they invent things and they form new organizations. And that is the lifeblood of our economy. It's the energy that drives it forward. It's one of the reasons why I have supported our educational institutions like Quinnipiac, and they are always hard pressed for funding. But the first point that I want to make unequivocally is, if we're talking about our economy and the health of our economy and innovation and invention, we have to invest in our institutions of higher learning. And that's why I've fought for more funds. In fact, even in the latest COVID relief plan, known as the American Rescue Plan, I am working for more funding for institutions like Quinnipiac. Now, the history of innovation in America involves inventions having to do with the computer and digital age, with various other areas that involve a triangular relationship, if you will, because it's more than just universities. It's also government in funding basic research. In World War II, the United States of America invested in basic research, not just in nuclear armament, which eventually produced nuclear weapons, but also in nuclear power generally, in the internet, in computers, in all kinds of scientific basic research that was done not only in the government labs, but also in the labs and the facilities and institutions of universities and private industry. In fact, the partnership of government, universities, and private corporations is the way discovery happens in this country. Computers are the product of that partnership. So is the space age and the partnerships that have driven the United States now to Mars, but to the space shuttle, to the first rockets that took man around our Earth in the stratosphere. The partnership there was critical, and it continues. Now we see some of the spin-offs in the potential for private companies taking people into space, but they are standing on the shoulders of research done by universities, government, and private industry. Genome research, likewise, the result of a partnership. And now we have private industry, entrepreneurs taking advantage of the discoveries with respect to the genome. And I will come now to maybe the most important and pertinent, the vaccines developed now. People have said, how could they do a vaccine in less than a year when normally vaccines take 10, 15 years? Well, the reason is, and Dr. Fauci would be the first to tell you, he is in government, that basic research was done on the mRNA delivery technique used as the basis for this vaccine. Years of research done before Moderna and Pfizer took advantage of it. Well done. You know, we should be very proud of Pfizer. I've talked to the scientists and the managers and administrators that, you know, they literally worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. But again, they were standing on the shoulders of researchers and scientists who worked hard and long to develop the mRNA technology that enabled them to deliver this vaccine. This messenger RNA was so important. Of course, now Johnson & Johnson has a different scientific vehicle, but they too have taken advantage of research done long before. That same relationship, universities, government, and entrepreneurs, which means, and this lesson is very important at this moment right now, we need to continue this investment in basic research. We need the scientists, the mathematicians, the researchers, and we also need the entrepreneurs who will take advantage of discoveries. The support for basic research has to come from the government, going to the labs at universities, going to the labs in private enterprise, also in government laboratories, NIH, all of the government agencies that have a stake need to be fully funded. If we try to economize now, if we cut back, we are in effect burning our seed corn. You need that seed corn, that basic research for the harvest that will take place in the future. And not only will we lose the resulting research, we'll lose the researchers, the scientists. We need to invest in their education and provide them the support once they leave school to do the work of research that's necessary. And we will lose to our adversaries. We are no longer separated by oceans geographically or oceans of knowledge figuratively. Our adversaries are doing that research too, and they will pass us. They will take our intellectual property if they can. They'll steal it, but they'll also build on it, just as we do. So we need to be competitive. And I think that the challenge ahead for this country will be truly to nurture and foster the kind of innovation that the People's Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship is supporting. And a lot of it is going to be from women. I'm so glad that the Women in Business Institute is sponsoring this kickoff series, or the kickoff to the series. And we need more women, and we need the diversity in scientific research and in entrepreneurship that reflects our society. The ranks of our universities, our government labs, all of our research facilities, including private enterprise, need to look like America, because we need to take advantage of the enormous talent and energy. And I'll just finish on one last note. As much as money, this effort is about values. It is about the American dream, opening that dream as peoples and other financial institutions have done to people who can invest with their lives, giving them the financial wherewithal to start a business, a startup, just like Google started and other small companies started in the wake of the computer revolution that was supported and fostered by the government. The guys who started Fortune 500 companies in their garages out in Silicon Valley ultimately had the benefit of financing from organizations like People. So we need to provide them the financial wherewithal. We also need to attract the talent to this country. We need an immigration system that enables smart, energetic, talented, creative, dedicated people to come here. Immigration reform is absolutely vital. I hear it from business people, educators across the board. Comprehensive immigration reform that gives people a path to citizenship, even if they're undocumented right now, a path to earn citizenship, but also enables them to come here with green cards if they have that basic scientific ability and the talent and energy in other areas, entrepreneurial ability that we need. So I am very excited by the mission of the series that you've organized. I'm very honored to kick it off. And I really am very, very grateful for all the work that is being done at Quinnipiac to support and foster the People's United Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the business school that is educating people to become entrepreneurs and business people, and of course to the university itself for the great talent that it is providing to our state and to the United States. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for your opening comments. And we are getting a lot of questions. And so I'm going to curate those questions for you. And there seems to be a group of questions that are coming in on student debt, which is not surprising. And I'll just quote one of the questions. Do you think this and the House of Representatives will sign a bill in favor of the $50,000 student loan forgiveness?
Great question. I think we may well have legislation. In the meantime, my hope is the president will take action by executive order to provide some relief to student debt. If I had to pick one issue where the future of America is vitally impacted, and the federal government could, by a stroke of the pen, turbocharge our educational system, our entrepreneurial talent, it would be eliminating the student debt. I recognize there are, as they say, moral hazards. Someone who's already taken the debt, what about the person who may incur it? In my view, the whole system has to be reformed. Student debt is the second biggest debt in this country after credit card debt. It's the largest non-credit card source of debt in this country, and it inhibits the entire economy. As you know, somebody who has $100,000 in student debt isn't going to be able to start a business or even buy a home.
Right.
So it works against all of us. And I think we will have some reform of student debt. Certainly, I am going to fight for it. I've joined Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer, my two colleagues, who are helping to lead this effort in advocating for student debt relief. And the $50,000 is a good place to begin.
Thank you for your answer, and you hit it right on the head in terms of the effect that having all of this debt that students are incurring has on their choices. They may choose not only not to go into entrepreneurial and innovative activities, they may choose positions or jobs or careers that are not their passion, but they're doing it because of the debt. And that's not good for the economy long term either, because we want their passion as well as their intelligence, and we want them to work on things that they want to work on, and that's how the economy and society progress. We also have some students that are interested in green technology and what's going on in the Senate there. And the question is investing in green energy and infrastructure something the next wave of innovators and businesses should be looking at?
They should be looking at it. Everybody should be looking at it. And in fact, I'm so glad you raised that excellent question, because it's another area where the government, universities, and private entrepreneurs or businesses can partner. I'm a supporter of the Green New Deal. I think we've long ago dispensed with the criticism that somehow green technology will eliminate jobs. Just the opposite. It's a job creator. Look at all the jobs that are coming from renewable energy, solar, wind, and so forth. The lesson is clear that green technology is a job creator, and our government ought to be investing in it. And I think it has, and it will. I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I'm also on the Commerce Committee and the Judiciary Committee and the Veterans Affairs Committee. Now you may say, gosh, do any of them have anything to do with green energy? Well, armed services. The United States military should be considering a fleet of vehicles that is completely electric, powered by electric energy. That's our future. General Motors is going there. In a very short time, it will be selling only cars that are electric powered. But our military can help lead the way. Likewise, our ships and other kinds of power consumers can be made more energy efficient. Our bases can be made more resilient. Climate change is a national security issue because the droughts, the sharp weather changes also threaten food sources in areas where terrorism can arise as a result or be fueled by famine. So the unrest, the terrorism, all raise national security issues and are recognized as such. The Commerce Committee, where I sit, we should be investing in the technology that businesses use, very practically speaking, in healthcare, where telemedicine has become such a great source of care for people. Now, telemedicine in its infancy had a lot of failings or defects, but it is now coming of age, and particularly in the time of the pandemic, behavioral health care, counseling, as well as physical health care are more and more commonly in use. So I think that technology in the environmental and climate change area can be a real source of jobs and economic advancement, as well as helping to save the planet.
Yeah, and saving the planet. I mean, I just saw an article about a iceberg a level piece of ice that broke off of Antarctica, the size of Manhattan. There was another situation in 2017 where a piece of ice broke off the size of Delaware. I mean, we are talking real changes. Because they're not in our backyard, we don't see them, but we know that that climate change is real and the federal government is going to have to lead it. But I'm also very encouraged seeing a number of corporations also get engaged with green energy and green technology. You mentioned Google before. Companies like Apple and Google have made commitment to being carbon neutral within the next 10 years. And not only they, but all of their suppliers. And I think when we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, there's just going to be a ton of activity to accomplish that goal. And you mentioned the federal role. I mean, the federal role had a huge role during the Second World War, during all of our crises, to fund and support this type of innovation. So that's right on target. We also are getting some comments and questions about where the opportunities are again. So this question is: thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for your service to our country and for speaking to our campus today. In terms of entrepreneurship, just a second, I just lost it. The questions are coming in so fast, they're moving. Let's see, where did it go? Okay, here it is. With the big changes in the business world, such as automation and the adoption of renewable energies in the business sector, how is this going to affect small businesses and startups for the future? So all of these changes, how do you see them impacting the small business community and in general, the business community?
I think we're living through a time of turmoil and challenge. That's a nice way of putting the fact that small businesses are challenged as never before. And so in the pandemic relief programs, we have a specific source of funding for the government. It's called the Paycheck Protection Program. It provides loans that can be turned into grants. There have been 2 rounds of paycheck protection programs for small business involving literally billions of dollars for Connecticut alone, hundreds of billions of dollars across the nation. Paycheck protection program was designed to protect paychecks, that is, employment payrolls, keep people on those payrolls, but now it's been made more flexible so it can be used for inventory, supplies, uh, rent, mortgage, utilities, to enable business to get through this very, very difficult period, small business particularly. But looking beyond the immediate challenge, I think there is tremendous opportunity because of the disruption. Again, I know it's a buzzword. We use it too often, but there is disruption right now. People are working at home. New industries have been created because people are now spending more time at home and they need to do things at home that they didn't before. Cooking items, because cooking has become so much popular for people who have time to spend at home. The kinds of appliances, the build outs, even types of chairs and desks, communications that reach people at home. I hate to say it, but Zoom, webinar, who heard of it a year ago, right? And it's not only those kinds of startups that have literally mushroomed, but the more established, Microsoft and their similar kinds of services. So I think there is a time now of tremendous opportunity, and you all know better than I because you're looking at them and studying them. I think it's a time of great innovation and opportunity. And I'll just say one other thing. The potential for borrowing money is there as well, because we will be investing. People have a lot of savings and they're looking for things to do with it. And I'm hopeful that we will invest now in infrastructure. After this rescue plan, roads, bridges, rail, broadband, ports, airports, infrastructure. And that will require innovation as well. We're not gonna just build more of the same. We're gonna have to become, again, more energy efficient in all of that infrastructure. Because as long as we're building something new, let's use the most advanced technology we have.
Well, thank you for that answer. We have another question that I want to ask that's music to my ears. It says, what is being done at the national level to specifically support student entrepreneurs who may not have access to raising the capital they need to fund their business ideas? So there's this disconnect. I mean, we do everything that we can on campus to support students with their early stage ideas, and some of these ideas are just phenomenal. I met with 2 students today on 2 different projects that were just, brilliant. But there's a disconnect. They don't have access to the banks. They're not taking as seriously as they should. And I think when you talked about the role of government and colleges in spurring innovation and entrepreneurship, Google started on a college campus. Apple started around the corner from a college campus. So there's great talent out there. What can we do at the federal level to support these students with these great ideas?
What we've been doing so far is not enough. What we should be doing is setting aside some investment capital, and we'll need to figure out how to institutionalize the awarding of that capital or the dispensing of it so that we have judgments about what are legitimate proposals. Maybe it should go through universities or state agencies like Connecticut's innovation agency. But I would love to work with folks at Quinnipiac who have thoughts about how it should be structured. I think that's the key. We'll find criticisms from people who say, oh, well, it's just a waste of money. It's a giveaway. It's, shoveling dollars out the door. We need to guard against, the the excesses or the waste. But if you look at what was done on the Paycheck Protection Program, we provided a lot of money very quickly. It saved a lot of businesses, restaurants, small retailers. Another round will help as well. But there was also money that went to businesses that didn't need it.
Right.
That was the price of moving quickly. And I think we need to get over the excessive fear of being entrepreneurial and innovative at the government level in how we structure programs. So I would invite anybody who has ideas, maybe I can come visit the campus. I know it may not be in the next month, but now that we know that vaccines are going to be available to everyone by May, that's an exciting prospect.
Yes.
Perhaps universities and colleges will open again and we can meet in person. I look forward to seeing you in person. But we should also think about, Fred, maybe if you want to put together a group, think about how we structure a government program that does better. There are some government programs, but some
Right.
innovation there.
Well, thank you. I will take you up on that challenge. And so you will hear from me, because I do believe that, yes, you're absolutely right. There are going to be businesses that don't pan out, but that's the nature of entrepreneurship in business. But the few that do could be life altering and economy altering for the state and for the country and the world. And so we've got another question by a student that says, Senator Blumenthal, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm wondering, there has been some talk that young people in Connecticut are leaving and for no longer contributing to the state's economy and innovations. What should Connecticut do to stop this? So we see this all the time with students. They would love to stay here, but they move. They go to Boston, they go to California, they go to New York, they go to Washington, they go to Florida, they go to Texas. How do we keep them here?
Well, how do we keep them here and how do we attract them back? How do we attract students from states where they may have gone? Also, how do we attract students from states where they may be studying with opportunity here? And I think just good, challenging jobs that pay well is the answer and offer opportunity. And also, I think great universities like Quinnipiac attract people. Some of your students may be leaving, but we can attract them back. And I think obviously the cost of living, taxes, all play a part. I understand the standard complaints that are made about the high cost of living in Connecticut. It's one of the reasons why we are highly in demand that, or to put it differently, the high cost of living is the result of our being a place in high demand to live. People want to live here. There's limited amounts of land, which drives up the cost of housing. There are all kinds of reasons why the cost of living is high, but we need to be mindful about tax levels for the middle class. Ultimately, the strength of our economy depends on the middle class. We need consumers and we need talent. So I think, how do we keep people here? We need to work harder at it. I would be interested, frankly, you've given me a great opportunity to throw this question back.
Okay.
What are you looking for? When you're thinking about going to another state, why? Why aren't you staying here? Probably it's because of a job opportunity. But are there other reasons? And if it's a job opportunity, so be it. We should not be sort of enviously or jealously trying to discourage people to go to opportunity. That's the free market. We need to work harder in creating opportunity here in Connecticut.
Okay. No, thank you. Along a similar line, we have a question that says, welcome, Senator. My wife and I are welcoming our first child this year. How can we mimic other European nations when it comes to investing in new parents? with parental leave assistance and focusing on building new family bonds in the early years. I mean, this is really social innovation that this question is talking about. And that this is we've got, I know childcare legislation is another major issue that's being considered in Washington. And so I'd appreciate it if you could address that question, Senator.
We need an investment in children, and it's at a lot of different levels. In our schools, we need to make that investment in teachers who are heroes. They've been working during this pandemic, putting their own lives at risk, and we need to put kids back in school safely. We need to get shots into their arms as soon as we know that the vaccine is safe and efficacious for children. But we also need to provide a child tax credit, which will lift thousands of children out of poverty. And we need daycare. Connecticut is losing daycare centers because the kids aren't able to go to them during the pandemic. And so they have lost a lot of revenue. So we'll need to invest in childcare, child tax credit, childcare, schools, teachers. It won't come for nothing. It requires an investment, but I think the country has never been as focused on the welfare of our children and the sacrifice that has been imposed on our children by this year, for many of them, away from school. Yes, remote learning works for some of them, but a lot of them aren't connected to the internet. Mm-hmm. And even in homes where there is connectivity, high-speed broadband, the resources may not be there to actually provide supervision. And so we have a lot of wounds that we need to recover. Now, that's not going to affect your newborn, but we need to support you with child tax credit, with childcare, with those kinds of resources that are important to families having two people in the workforce, if that's their choice, or not, if it isn't their choice. But one way or the other, support parents.
Well, thank you. I see a question here from one of my advisors, Rick Ivione from People's United Bank. And so I'm going to make sure I get his question in. And his question is, I'm on an advisory board at Dr. McKinney Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Can you comment about the general view and the political will for federal support for innovation in on college campuses, especially in view of the current political climate? So this is similar to an earlier question, but it's looking at it, okay, I'll let you take it from there.
I think that's a great question. How does the federal government continue investment? How do we build the political support, the coalition that's necessary for it? The American Rescue Plan that we're debating right now, literally, I have taken some time away from the negotiations and the discussions ongoing at this moment, and I hope we'll vote, if not tonight, tomorrow, has become partisan. I don't think it should be. Our past pandemic relief plans were passed by overwhelming bipartisan majorities. I hope we'll get beyond whatever our partisan divisions here, because we need bipartisan support for investment in this center, the People's Center, for innovation and entrepreneurship, in the business schools that train our entrepreneurs. And it should be bipartisan. They exist in every state, red or blue. And I'm hoping that we will come together in a more bipartisan spirit. In the meantime, we need to be big and bold in this rescue plan. We need to provide money for state and local governments, $400 billion, because they need to keep their police and fire and first responders on their payroll. They need to put kids back to school safely. We need to invest in vaccine manufacture as well as delivery, billions of dollars for that purpose. another round of aid to small business, stimulus payments, $1,400 per person, because we need to put money in people's pockets. We need to make sure that we provide unemployment insurance, maybe not at the $600 level, probably more like 400 or 300, that will provide incentives for people to go back to work. This package is big and it may be partisan, but we need to do it and then move beyond to bipartisan cooperation. I hope it will be on infrastructure.
So I'm going to continue. We got another question along those lines, and it has to do with the minimum wage, which is, I'm not sure, is it in or is it out? I know it's in the House bill, but it looks like the Senate Rules Committee or the Senate parliamentarian has ruled that it's not to be in the Senate bill. Can you talk about the minimum wage and whether or not you support the minimum wage at $15 an hour?
I do support it at $15 an hour, Fred. I support requiring a minimum wage at $15 an hour to be phased in. We all agreed, I think unanimously, in an amendment to the budget resolution that Senator Sanders also supported, that it has to be phased in because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Small businesses particularly are hurting and struggling to keep their doors open. But $15 an hour is pretty basic. And I recognize that small businesses in some states may not be paying it right now, but they will have sufficient time to adjust. It will not be in the American Rescue Plan. The reason is quite simply, the parliamentarian has ruled that it cannot be done by budget reconciliation. That is literally a budget process that enables us to pass this measure with 51 votes instead of the 60 that otherwise would be required under the Senate rules. So the parliamentarians ruled it can't be done by budget reconciliation. We'll have to find another path. It is in the House bill. It will not be in the Senate bill. And I think it is very unlikely that it will be part of the final American Rescue Plan.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from a business student. It says, I am currently a business student at QU. When I graduate, what can I do to keep up with the changing technology and the evolution to green energy, even if I do not know about these fields? So you're going to have to put on your parental hat and give some advice to our student on their careers.
Come see me. Come talk to me. We want to encourage people to be in those kinds of careers. I think you can get a lot of advice from Fred McKinney, but seriously, I think that there are so many opportunities out there, and I know that Quinnipiac has great counselors, great resources, and sources of advice. So, but I'm also available if careers in government are of interest to you.
Okay, we also have several questions about marijuana. It says, thank you, Senator. Here's one. Thank you, Senator, for your time and service. Will we see the federal government legalize recreational use of marijuana in the next 5 years? I think entrepreneurs in Connecticut could benefit from the industry as well as reduce use of plastics with hemp-made products. So it's both there's a criminal justice aspect of this. There's also an environmental aspect of this.
I support repealing the federal criminal laws that prohibit medicinal or recreational use of marijuana. The federal criminal laws, frankly, are usually unenforced right now, unless it relates to the organized crime elements that are selling and dealing for profit. I think that our present criminal structure needs reform at the federal level. What states may do should be their choices, just as Connecticut has taken important steps in that regard.
Yeah, I was I guess I don't have enough on my plate. I was reading HR1 today, and HR1, as you know, is the House legislation which is looking to increase or open up voting in American society. And one of the aspects of HR1 is that there are 5.2 million Americans who are either in jail or are on parole or are back out in society. Only 24% of that 5.2 million people are in prison right now, and most of those people out of prison don't have voting rights in many states. And it's shocking to me to see the percentage and the disparity impact that the criminal justice system has on voting rights. And I wanted, and just to give you an example, I saw that in the legislation, they talk about some of these statistics, and it's for instance, in Alabama, 16% of adult black males and females in Alabama are not allowed to vote. I mean, that's a tremendously large number of people who are not in the political process. And that's not the highest. In Wyoming, 36% of African Americans are uh, not voting because of a criminal record. So, what is your position? This is a question from me. What is your position right now on HR1, and how do you handicap it? Is this going to get through the Senate? I know that the Mitch McConnell let the bill sit on his desk for literally years. Where is it, and what's happening?
I wish I could be more optimistic, Fred, about HR1. I strongly support it. I advocated it in the last Congress. I will strongly support it again this Congress. We will need 60 votes for it, which means 10 Republicans. That'll be difficult to do. But we're going to fight for it, and maybe we can persuade enough of our colleagues to join us.
Okay. And we have another question. It says from a student, how can students who are set to graduate get involved in politics and they want to make a change? They want to get involved in politics to make a change. What's your recommendation to students who want to get involved in politics?
You know, there's so many different opportunities to work for other candidates or to run yourself for political office. We have a new administration now in Washington that is coming into power, and they are hiring young people. So whether it is appointive office or elective office, there are a lot of opportunities. And at the local level, in local government, they are hungry for young talent. It may not be the most lucrative or the highest paying job, but there are tons of opportunities to be of public service. And then never underestimate your ability to win a race simply by virtue of hard work. You know, I've said to countless people, I've done my share of elections. I always say to people, I always run like I'm 10 points behind. You know, if you work hard, if you take nothing for granted, there's no limit to what you can do. And I'll just give you one example. Young boy raised by parents who came to Meriden, Connecticut from Puerto Rico, not an English language speaker, went to school and not only learned, but mastered English, went to Connecticut higher education institutions, and then returned to his hometown, Meriden, to teach in 4th grade. He was appointed assistant principal and then superintendent, one of the youngest ever, and then commissioner of education about a year ago, commissioner of education in the state of Connecticut. Today, that man, Miguel Cardona, is the Secretary of Education for the United States of America, a member of the president's cabinet. English wasn't his first language. His parents didn't have a lot of money. He went to public school and then stayed in Connecticut to do teaching, then administering, and government service. And today he is a member of the President's Cabinet. The American dream.
It is. And I have had the honor and pleasure of meeting now the Secretary of Education, Cardona, actually at an innovation program at one of the high schools, junior high schools in Shelton, Connecticut, where he talked about his investment. At that time, he was the commissioner for education at the state of Connecticut. And like you said, this is a great American story. And if you can,
yeah.
So
I'll give you another one, Fred. Today I introduced, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So
no, go ahead.
I'll give you another one. Today in one of our other committees, I introduced a woman, Brenda Mallory, African-American, the daughter of a preacher, Reverend Thomas Mallory, in Waterbury, Connecticut. She exemplifies the work ethic, faith, family values of Waterbury and of her family. She went to Yale, first in her family ever to go to college, and then Columbia Law School. She worked in law firms. She worked in government, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and then for private nonprofit. And now she will be serving, she's been nominated to be chairman of the Council on Environmental Quality, CEQ, created by the federal law that also created the EPA. And she will serve in that position of tremendous responsibility. She's from Connecticut. She's lived in Waterbury for a while. In Maryland for a while. And she exemplifies also that American dream.
So we have time for a few more questions, Senator, and I am not going to be able to get to all of the questions, and we're going to just have to have you back. Okay. I want to get to a question. Well, this is a comment, and this is from a student. It says, yes, please come and visit Quinnipiac, Senator Blumenthal. Then we have another question from a student. In your opinion, what is the toughest part of being a senator?
That is a great question. The toughest part of being a senator for me is being away from Connecticut for 4 or 5 days a week. I love Connecticut. My family is there. And I'm in Washington, D.C. at this very moment. Sounds kind of glamorous being in the Senate. You know, we go to the chamber of the Senate and, you know, we think of ourselves as people of power. But in fact, I miss Connecticut. I miss the people of Connecticut when I'm down here, and I welcome people to visit when they are able to do it. And I think also knowing sometimes thinking ahead to what will best serve the interests of the people of Connecticut, because it's not just about today, it's about tomorrow and next year and the years after, trying to think ahead, as we've been discussing on this phone call. And I think the most important part of my job is listening. I know I've been doing a lot of talking as part of this series, the kickoff to the series. But mostly, I think of my job as listening more than talking. And I tell people God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we do a little more listening than talking. I really believe listening is tremendously important, but it takes time. And often it takes proximity. The Zoom and webinar features have enabled us to reach a lot more people without going places physically. But the challenge of listening to people is such an important part of my job. And, you know, it's been made more challenging during this pandemic.
I have a question here from one of my colleagues, my faculty colleagues, Dr. Awudu, who asked, hello, Senator Blumenthal, thanks for your time. Can you please share some perspectives in relation to the future of minority business or minority entrepreneurs in the post-COVID era in Connecticut? as you know, minority businesses have been particularly hard hit by COVID. And I know the PPP is one of the main things that is being used to address that. But as you know, in the first round in particular, there was some real problems rolling it out and getting minority firms engaged. So I'll let you take that question, please.
I won't sugarcoat the answer, Fred. The federal program had as one of its failings the failure to do sufficient outreach to communities of color.
Mhm.
The simple fact is that businesses owned and run by Black and brown people had less access. And part of it was that initially the program went through the big banks, and they, of course, had relationships with bigger companies rather than entrepreneurs, small business owners in the Black and brown communities. I saw this failing immediately. I tried to get the SBA to focus on the smaller businesses. Right now, there's a time of availability for the smallest of the smaller businesses under the PPP program, 20 or fewer employees, more flexible funding. We've tried to make it more approachable and accessible. That's the kind of attitude that we need, because the health of our society depends on communities of color being a wellspring, not the only one, but a wellspring. And we need equity, racial justice in business, in government programs that aid business, just like we need more equity and racial justice in our healthcare system. Not only have more small businesses owned by Black and brown entrepreneurs gone out of business, but also the pandemic has caused twice as many deaths. The death rate in communities of color is much higher than in others, and the levels of vaccination are lower. In housing, we still need justice because redlining still exists. In education, the quality of schools often depends on child zip code. And of course, in policing, racial justice in policing, still a goal, much more urgent than ever. What we've seen in the Black Lives Matter movement, in the racial justice movement, I've attended 20 or more demonstrations and protests, peaceful, in Connecticut, all around our state, where young people have been leading, just like they did in the civil rights movement. Young people leading, and our universities and colleges have been a source of inspiration in that regard.
Well, Senator Blumenthal, we are at the 7 o'clock hour, and I just want to leverage your celebrity because we don't get this number of people to hear me talk about what we're doing at the center. So if you will allow me to say a few words, and I see President Olean, and I'm going to ask her to say a few words in closing as well. But I wanted to share with our attendees that this is the kickoff of the People's United Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and we have a phenomenal lineup of leaders coming to campus to speak to students, faculty, and staff, and to have these types of substantive conversations about innovation, business, society, and how students can participate in particular with these activities. But we have William Ginsburg, and all of these people I'm sure Senator Blumenthal knows well. Bill Ginsburg is the president and CEO of the Greater New Haven Community Foundation. We have Onye Obicha, who is the director of the Sci Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. We have Rodney Sand, who's coming up from Atlanta, who is probably one of the premier experts in urban innovation. George Lato, who is an executive at one of our local pharmaceutical companies that is in charge of innovation at that company. Garrett Sheehan, who is the president and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. Donna Leckie, who is the president of the New Haven Health Initiative, and Mary Howard, who is the leader of an organization in biotech. So we've got these this series starting on March the 10th, next Wednesday. All of these programs will be at 12 o'clock noon. They're open to students. They're open to the public. But in addition to the speaker series at the center, we have a pitch competition. And so students are encouraged. If you know students on campus that have great ideas, we have a pitch competition. We don't have a lot of money, but we give prizes. We'll give over $6,000 in prizes to students who make the most effective, most influential, the best pitch. And we'll have some outside judges for that. We have a spring workshop series, and that's with the People's United Center for Women in Business, and they've got a tremendous lineup of activities, and that starts tomorrow with someone I know that Senator Blumenthal also knows, Meredith Rubin, who is the president and CEO of Eastern Bag and Paper, one of the premier businesses in the state run by a woman. We also are going to be doing a research award program this year where we want to encourage our faculty and staff to do research. So the center will actually provide resources to faculty to work on issues of entrepreneurship and innovation, summer money for them. We also have a student consulting group that we're starting. We know that Senator Blumenthal mentioned the needs out there in the community. We've got really bright students on campus who want to be helpful. And if you're one of those students or you know students who want to participate in that program, we will connect our students with businesses, local businesses and organizations. And so we're doing some really great things here on campus. And I'm so glad that the senator could be with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to President Oley. And this is a surprise because she didn't know that she was going to have a role in this program, but I see her there and I appreciate President Oley. And if you could say a few words. You have to take yourself off mute though.
Thank you. Thanks, Fred, Professor McKinney, and what a great lineup you have there in terms of really stimulating and spawning innovation. As the senator said, that's really been the measure of difference of America's economy. And I do want to thank the senator. I don't know if people realize how tireless and selfless the work of the senator has been. Always in representing Connecticut, but especially over the last year at great personal sacrifice, serving day in, day out in Washington, and really, I think, enabling the communities that are vulnerable, in particular, to COVID, to really have a safety net. And that's what's coming out of Washington. This third relief bill is that third safety net, but that has been the measure of difference and the reason that communities have been able to come back despite what is terrible hardship. And I also want to thank the senator. He never says no. Whenever Quinnipiac calls, he's here. And he's boundless in his own innovativeness and creativity. If you look at the range of bills that the senator has sponsored, it's all over the place, and in areas that really matter, in healthcare, in gun control, in education, and even in Division I athletics, which is something that also affects Quinnipiac. And your role now in this relief bill is vital to every community, including to higher education. There is a very significant portion in there that is going to enable us to continue operating and operating safely. So thank you, Senator, for your selflessness, for your dedication. And now, even at your own physical peril, I see that Capitol may be closed tomorrow because of a threat. And what you are doing is really God's work. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Olian, and thank you for your leadership in higher education, which has been so enormously meaningful at Quinnipiac and before throughout your career. And I really just want to thank Fred again for inviting me. That is an all-star cast that you have on the horizon, and I'm really honored to be the kickoff speaker. I look forward to being back, and I really very much look forward to visiting the school as soon as possible. I've always really been inspired when I visit. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator. And I want to thank all of our guests that participated in the program tonight. And if I didn't get to your question, it's not because it wasn't a good question. It wasn't a great question. It's just that we've run out of time. And thank you, Senator. I know that you're at work and
And
you're
it
probably
worked.
going to go back to work. And so thank you for taking time, and you're doing the people's work here in Connecticut and in the nation. So thank you for your service, and good night to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.